Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. This week I talk with Eric July, who you may know from his appearances on The Blaze, through his own YouTube channel, his music, any number of places, quite honestly. Truly, the man is ubiquitous. That conversation is next. But first, have you ever been on a road trip where the sleeping conditions just weren't the greatest? I want you to think of Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, their two distinct personalities, forced to share a bed while on an important diplomatic trip. To complicate matters, when bedtime came, the uptight Adams wanted the window of their room closed. Franklin wanted it open. The two had different theories on how one would get sick back in that day. Adams thought it was from the night air. Franklin theorized that being shut up in close quarters was the culprit. So they laid there trying to fall asleep. The window was open, by the way. Franklin detailed the reasons why the night air was best to circulate through an open window, and Adams, bored of the science lesson from Dr. Franklin, drifted off to sleep. I just love stories from history like this. They really bring the founding fathers to life. And this month at aprcoffee.com, Ben Franklin is being recognized, as he should be. Go check out the blend named after him, a blend as unique and as versatile as America's incredible founding father, Benjamin Franklin. And if you order at least 2 pounds of coffee at aprcoffee.com and you type in ATM, stands for At the Mic, in the special instructions section during checkout, they're going to include an 8-ounce bag of the Reagan, A Time for Choosing blend. That's a $10 value. You're going to get it for free. You got to head over to aprcoffee.com, type in ATM in the special instructions section.
You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
Eric July is my guest this week. He tells us his story from gang member to track and field star to popular music artist to economics expert. I love this guy, Eric July. He's fascinating. And here is that conversation on this week's edition of At the Mic. Eric, thanks so much for making time. I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you having me on a long time. Kind of overdue here, but, you know, better later than never, huh?
Well, we pass each other in the hallway, and we've spoken for maybe 5 minutes at a time at the most. And so this is really an opportunity for me to actually get to know you in real time with everybody else. So that's pretty cool. You were born and raised here in Dallas, Texas.
Absolutely. Born and raised. Been here my entire well, I can't say my entire life because you consider college, and I had a year where I was in Arkansas. But yeah, born and raised here. You
mentioned college. You went to the University of Memphis, then Texas A&M, Corpus Christi.
Yes.
So you've made the rounds. What were you studying when you were going to college?
It's funny. I didn't know what I wanted to initially go in for, but I went to University of Memphis because of the track scholarship that I was offered. It just happened to be a very, very good music school. So I thought that was more so what I was going to do. Now, when I transferred to Corpus Christi, Texas A&M University, of course, but, you know, I was still doing track and field, of course. A decent music school over there, but I was learning more about the real world, right? And it's like there's not a whole lot I can do with this music degree if I ended up getting it. And I ended up kind of leveling out, wanting to study economics as well as communication. Okay. Something that seemed more useful, but then even once I was done with that, I realized, especially from the economic side, when you consider the economics that they teach you in university isn't like, you're not going to learn about Hayek and Rothbard. That's not really a thing that you may learn about them, but that's not the kind. It's more Keynesianism form of economics. So yeah, you may learn what the professor wants you to know, but it's not legitimate economics.
There's 3 directions here that I want to go, and we're going to cover all of them. But you are a deep thinker. You have an economic mind. So my question for you is, at what point did that really trigger with you where you were really involved in thinking, sadly, outside the box compared to everybody else?
Yeah, I say this all the time. Like when I was, just like a lot of young people going into college, I thought I knew everything, right? I was a leftist growing up. So go to college, go to University of Memphis. And that was really my first experience speaking to people of different like ideologies and philosophies that don't agree with me, and I knew, I knew it all, but I didn't.
Well, so just to interrupt you there, you said you were, I guess, exposed to people that didn't think like you. You're still a liberal at this point.
Yes, still,
so they're
absolutely.
Actually free thinkers along the way
absolutely.
in college? Okay, cool.
Absolutely,
All right.
Most definitely. And I was like, yeah, man, this is and I'm losing arguments. I don't really know what it is that I'm talking about. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to actually get equipped for these conversations because I'm not nearly as smart as what I initially thought.
Okay.
Period. So what I did was I wanted to learn about economics because I come from a background of being out here, for example, in Dallas. I was known for, rapping.
Right.
And I made a killing as a youngster. That was my little side hustle. You know what I mean? Like I remember doing these clubs, now of course I blow the money on just nonsense anyway. But no, I could come out like on any given like Sunday night with $1,000. Like it was decent money for a guy that's 16, 17 years old, not a whole lot of obligations. But I wanted to learn more about economics, and that got me wanting to learn about like black economists, right? And thank God I come across the likes of Thomas Sowell and Dr. Walter E. Williams.
Two of the greatest.
Absolutely. And when I say it's like one of those things that just clicks and you just like, wow. And you hear it worded in a way that you maybe never heard it worded as, particularly with Thomas Sowell, because he kind of prides himself on, like with the Basic Economics book, trying to break it down for the common man to understand. And it just absolutely changed my life for the better because it sent me down a rabbit hole. Walter Williams and Dr. Sowell, that turns into, okay, I want to know more about like the Chicago economists that maybe influenced Sowell. So that may change into, Friedman or something like that. And then that changed into, well, wait a minute, there's other forms of like free marketers that are economists. And then you go into Austrian school, and you find out about David Friedman, which is, I know he comes still more from Chicago like his father, but, you learn about, the Hayeks. And then once you go full Rothbard, there's no turning back after that.
You were using the internet for good.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. At that time, for sure. Because, definitely back then, you could go on YouTube and go down a rabbit hole that would send you down there. And next thing you know, 5 hours had passed, and you're like,
What's the year span we're talking about roughly when you were in college doing this?
So I started college in 08 ish. So I was out of Memphis by the end of 2009.
Okay.
And then that's when I was at A&M Corpus Christi. So you're talking about that growth going, late 20s, 2000, and then before 2010s. And then by then I was kind of, once you go all the way, you go all the way.
That's really cool, man. Yeah. So you're going to school for music. Mm-hmm. Do you then switch gears at some point and say, all right, I need to be doing more studying in economics, and I need that as a degree as opposed to music? Yeah,
it was because I still kept the music thing around with wanting to minor in it, right? So it just wasn't my heavy emphasis, if you will. Mm-hmm. So
in other words, you discovered economics just in time.
Yeah, just in time, right? Most definitely. And then, I'm starting to realize, like I said before, I just didn't, thankfully, because learning about that and then seeing everybody else in their comments about like education and the higher education system and how a lot of it's quack, man. A lot of definitely, I got out of school at 2013, so right before it got completely crazy, but there was still a bunch of worthless degrees, liberal arts. Because again, I went for that, and I thought because I was a speaker, communication was my thing. Like I thought communication studies was a good route to go. But definitely once you the more you go into school, and I remember my last class taking that in 2013, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything with this. So thankfully, when I came out of college, I was still an athlete, so I kind of went right into the gym industry. That was kind of a natural crossover, and being like, general manager for different gym chains and stuff. That was a natural crossover because I've been an athlete. So I had that going for me, and it seemed like me being an athlete benefited me, that job, more than studying economics or studying communication or a music minor.
What a crazy time this must have been for you, where it sounds like, it's coincidental, but not really, that these were the three directions I wanted to go here when I said, all right, which direction do I go here?
Yeah.
You were living it.
Yeah.
It feels like your brain was going in three different directions at one time. Do I do the sports stuff with your athletic background? Do I do the music stuff with had been your interest for the longest time? Or do I go to this new love, economics, right? Like, take us through your typical day around this time.
Yeah, I mean, because again, you're at that age where with me, like you're getting closer and closer to be getting out there in the real world. And a lot of folks don't seem to understand when you're in college, and definitely if you go away from home like I did, where you're basically, I mean, I was on Corpus Christi, I was literally on the island anyway. I guess maybe that's the metaphor. But no, I was out there and I was like, okay, you don't really, because you're an athlete, definitely. So you're like, okay, I don't really think about the world after this because that's what consumed you. But the closer you get to the point to where, okay, school is over, your eligibility is about to be over, I'm thinking like, well, wait a minute, what am I going to like do? And I'm trying to nail this down, and it was difficult. And some things did work against me, but they were generally positive, and that is my, around that time I had got into finally doing stuff from like the metal and the hardcore stuff, like being in bands. So that was around the time that because I joined Fire, my previous band, that was like 2011-ish, 2011, 2012-ish, if I'm not mistaken. So that was taking off. So I'm like,
are you writing lyrics, by the way?
Yes, I was doing all. Yeah.
Are there any odes to Hayek or anything like that you?
Oh yes.
Honestly, like.
Oh yeah. Oh, most definitely.
It sounds like a flippant question, but were some of these new views that you were holding, that you were so passionate about, and really becoming ingrained in you, were they spilling out in?
Oh
music
man,
lyrics?
I wrote a song. My previous band, I was in again called Fire from the Gods. The one EP that I did there, I wrote a song called The Capitalist. It was
I love it.
So that was like 2012, right? And this song was the first song that I had rapped on that was a metal track, right? Called The Capitalist.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So again, I was introducing them to something new because I had joined this band and it was more of like a deathcore band, and then I came in, I was like, okay, why don't we have some singing elements? And then The Capitalist came out and I threw a rap on it. And it was kind of funny watching the genre kind of respond to that, because some people were like, oh, man, I don't know if this is my taste. And other people like, mind's blown. So it was really cool. But that was my like track that kind of, you heard that kind of bleeding out. And even really that whole EP was talking about, like, I wrote a song called Secession, right? It was talking about like decentralization and and stuff like that. So
and how cool is that to think that there are people out there that are singing these lyrics?
Yeah, and they probably didn't even think of it as far as what they were singing when you consider that. But that was me as I was growing, certainly politically. That was me kind of showing that in some of those songs. And then obviously the band that I'm in now, which everybody knows me for with Backwards, yeah, it's like, it's blunt. It's blunt as I'll get at having songs called Self-Ownership. It's funny you mentioned Hayek. I say a song, like in a lyric on the album, I say, should read The Road to Serfdom. Obviously an ode to him. So most definitely as I grew, but definitely during that time, that early 2010-ish, that was, my lyrics was absolutely reflecting my growth at the time.
Did you get any pushback from your bandmates, or were they of the same mind?
Not the one that I was in, again, Fire from the Gods, no.
Right.
But they knew that the music was good and they didn't really care. We had more issues back then with, introducing this new rap element.
Okay.
Right? Because, again, this wasn't a band that I created. This was a band I joined as a vocalist.
Okay.
So they had their way of doing things, and it's funny that the band at the time was split. Because I remember having an argument with them when we were recording. It was a song called Eat that we were recording, and it was like heavier rap than the Capitalist song that we had did. And this was going into like kind of this new direction that we were really going to embrace it. And I remember having an argument with one of the bandmates, and it turned into an argument between basically all 4 or 5 of us, because you had some that were like, yeah, we need to do this. This is going to take it to another direction. And of course you had the guys that, one of which actually founded the band, was like, no, we're supposed to be like this kind of metal, kind of hardcore act. So that was in itself a conflict, which is hilarious because the band is still around and they add all these rap elements now because, of course, they imprint that that I had left before I had left that band, but that was more so the conflict there. It wasn't necessarily philosophically or anything that, but I know like for example, the front man of that band now is like to the opposite of me on the political thing. So it's kind of hilarious because we're still obviously going to get compared because look, they tried to be me, and they tried to replace me with another black guy that called himself doing metal and rap. He just wasn't as good. But again, that's not even disrespect. That's just the reality. They'll admit that he's not a rap guy. But politically, he's opposite of me, which shows that they certainly weren't. They didn't care about more so where the vocalist was or what kind of music that he wrote. So our conflict was an early rendition of us adopting the rap element, and that became more of a conflict than the politics.
Okay, all right. So let's back up to your childhood then.
Yeah.
And talk track and field. You can grow up as a kid, and like I played t-ball at age 5, right? And then I just played baseball every year, blah, blah, blah. Where does a kid that wants to run track and field really get that start?
Yeah, that's a good question because usually a lot of times track is one of those sports that a lot of guys that do other sports end up doing. So if they're like a football player, they happen to have a little speed on them, and then they end up doing track. I came in doing that because my father, which say what you will, him not being around after the fact, but he was a track and field guy. He went to, I believe it was Ouachita out in Arkadelphia. That's where he met my mother.
Okay.
And he was a track guy. So when I was very, very young, I was introduced to that to a very, very young age. So I actually was doing that, and I remember doing field day and having doing the races and stuff like that.
Was field day not the greatest thing
awesome.
ever?
It was awesome.
Do they still do that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, that's certainly not something you can do on Zoom.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if they were doing that before.
Yeah. Field day was awesome, man. I had some great times.
I lived for field day.
Yeah, those are incredible times. But that was actually when I found out, okay, like I'm just gifted. Right, like I was just faster than everybody. I could jump further than everybody. I was just gifted at what it was that and that's what speed is. Speed is not taught. You either got that or you don't. You can teach a fast person how to be fast, but you can't teach a slow person how to be fast. It just doesn't work like that. So I was, because of my family, and then I had an older cousin, first cousin, who ended up going to college for track and field as well. So I was always exposed to that either way that it went. I did play other sports growing up. But, of course, aging throughout high school, I found out that if there was going to be a sport that I took it to the next level, it was going to be track. So I had to, by senior year, I had dropped everything. I dropped basketball. I dropped, played soccer for a little bit and played baseball for a little. I had to drop all of that because by my senior year, it was like I need to focus on this sport if I'm going to go to college. I didn't have any offers for anything going into my senior year of track and field.
Oh, my.
Nothing. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to take it serious. And, I had a crazy good senior year. And the one thing turned another. Got an offer from University of Memphis, and certainly the rest was history.
Okay. How did it go once you got there?
Oh, man. Eye-opening. Just for perspective here, I competed, even though I can say this now because I'm not there anymore. But I never lived. I graduated from Mansfield Summit, which is an incredible school.
Okay.
I didn't live in freaking Mansfield.
No.
I'm from South Dallas, man. And so I was driving there. Obviously, you can mess around with addresses and stuff like. But no, seriously, because I was a knucklehead growing up. I used to fight and stuff. My mother was like,
"Edit this
I
out.
got to get you into a school that is worth something, so you can try to be away from that nonsense that you're doing out in South Dallas," which it kind of didn't work for a little bit. I learned to appreciate it by my senior year, but that was the direction that I was certainly going in. But to your question, going into Memphis, University of Memphis, was the most eye-opening experience that I had. Again, for perspective, me running track, I was running for Mansfield Summit. That was a 5A school. I know they have 6A in Texas now. 5A was the highest when I graduated, so I'm at the highest division schools and the biggest schools with the best facilities generally.
And nobody there is asking where you live.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of that. So obviously that more so happens in like other sports, like, hey, football. Get the guy football, basketball, so he can get in our district, and it happens. It's no secret. I just did it for track. But me being there, and I went all the way to state. I won my division. Went to regionals. Got top 2 qualifiers for the state meet, and I went to the state meet. So you're thinking, okay, I'm at least can say that I'm a top 8 guy in the state in the highest division, 5A in Texas. So I'm fast. I'm thinking like, yeah, of course I'm gonna get offers now because I could not get offers. So I go to Memphis, and we didn't run. I know it's maybe different now. I have a cousin that goes to Cedar Hill. I saw them posting about him running an indoor track meet. We didn't run that when I was coming up. Like Texas didn't really do indoor track meets. That's more so a thing that they do up north. So for those that don't know, there's 2 different seasons in track. You have usually during the winter, you have the indoor season, and then the outdoor season is starting going into the spring. So my first meet was an indoor meet at the University of Memphis. And for those that don't know, the tracks are smaller. So generally, you're going to run on like a 200-meter track, whereas the outdoor tracks are usually 400. You're running on a 200-meter track. Sometimes you'll get someone that has, like Texas Tech has like a 300-meter. I believe Kentucky had a 300-meter or something above. So the curves are really sharp.
Oh, boy.
And sometimes you go like A&M not A&M Corpus, but Texas A&M and College Station. They had a bank track. So it's supposed to compensate for that. So it kind of goes up as you're running around the curve. So you're like almost running on a wall there. So it's to help with that. Whereas a lot of guys just have a flat 200-meter track. And my first meet was in I'll never forget it, Eastern Illinois. I believe it was running a 200. I got last place in that heat.
Oh, no.
That was my first. I mean, you're talking a guy that came from Texas. That's his first meet. And it was the most eye-opening experience because it showed me that no matter how fast I thought I was, I hadn't seen anything yet. I mean, I got my head bust, not just by those 2 guys that they happen to be like very good athletes as well. A guy that was my teammate as well was in that heat, blew the doze off of me. So it was an experience because it really showed that I'm not going to be handed anything at this level. This is a level that is unlike anything else that I had experienced, where you had, again, with track guys, football guys doing track. Over here, for the most part, everybody that's doing track are track and field athletes. So you're getting the best of the best from running. And I was a sprinter, 100, 200 to 400, whatever. So, that was my experience, and it sucked. It was like I remember talking to my coach like, dog, I thought I was for real. I'm not anything like what I thought I was. And I had to work. I didn't really come alive track and field in college until by redshirt sophomore or just redshirt junior year at Texas A&M University, and that's when I finally was one of more like upper echelon of 100-meter, 200-meter guys.
So it sounds like your mom wisely got you into a good high school.
Yes.
So she sounds awesome.
Yeah, she is.
You did briefly allude to your dad.
Yeah.
Give us the story there.
So my father was I'm one of those rarities where, and this is why I'm so passionate about the subject of fathers being in the homes and stuff like that, because I came from one of those rarities where I was born into the world in a decent situation. I had both of my parents there, my mother, my father, who I thought loved each other, loved me. So I was coming up, and we weren't, of course, rich, but both of them had okay jobs, and I was not like living in the hood or anything like that. Like maybe on the outskirts, still living in South Dallas, but off of Hampton versus going way deep in Oak Cliff, Texas. That wasn't my experience until around I had to been like, I can't remember the age, man, but I certainly wasn't older than 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
My mother and my father split. So I go from living that life to back. Well, now I'm living in Dallas in an apartment, a very small apartment. So I went from having something to almost nothing. And my mother had to work 2 jobs to try to provide, certainly for me, and it sucked for her. But she was doing all that she could for me. We didn't have a lot of money or anything, and that was actually why I ended up going for a year, and that was my freshman year, a little bit of my freshman year in high school, to Arkadelphia, because that was her shipping me off to my grandma to like, somebody's got to straighten this boy out. And that's the importance of having a father that was in the house, because he wasn't there anymore. He wasn't there. So my mother could only do so much. She could not teach me how to be a man. That's one thing she'll admit to this day, and why she emphasized so much, before you have kids, you need to get married, you need to do all of this, because I don't want you not only to make mistakes that I made, but you saw it and you lived it. You know what I mean? That experience of not having a male figure, father figure, to be able to, let's say, tame you. And I couldn't. So I was a knucklehead. I grew up fighting, doing all of that stuff, running up and down, gallivanting down Dallas, Texas, as well as going to the other side of town, Fort Worth and Arlington, and beefing with them over there just to do it. You know, I was an idiot back then. But that was my experience, and it's just my mother did everything that she could for me, and that was her like last Hail Mary was, okay, I can get him away from the environment. Yes, when he comes back home, he'll maybe he can get stuck in that, but at least for most of his day when he's in school, he'll be in a better environment. And I didn't appreciate it then. I still call myself being a knucklehead when I first got there, but by my senior year, I certainly straightened up.
Okay, all right. So you grew up an only child.
Yes.
As did I. It has its benefits.
Oh, yeah.
It has its drawbacks. At the end of the day, are you happy you were an only child, or do you wish you had a sibling?
Happy, I mean, yes, I would say, I guess, considering what I just said, if I had maybe an older brother, it probably could have helped out. But appreciating, like, how I live now is like, dude, I think I have a much appreciation for having fulfillment within myself, right? And in my own general accomplishments. I'm not a guy that likes to go out it sounds like stupid considering my job is to tour the country and scream in a microphone in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, that doesn't make sense. But seriously, aside from me doing that, I'm comfortable within myself. I don't do a whole lot anymore like I did when I was certainly growing up. And I think me growing up as an only child helped with that, because I'm always comfortable within myself. I don't have to go seek like validation or something like that from other people, which is why I don't need to go. If I go out of town, I'm doing a speaking engagement or something like that. As people say this all the time, man, Eric's no fun, because he'll go to a speaking engagement or something, and he'll live at the hotel. Maybe the speaking engagement at a hotel. We're gonna go drink or something like that. And Eric's like, nah, man, I'm gonna stay chilling in my room, because that's how I am. I'm like, I go there, get the business done. Y'all brought me here to go speak. I'm going back upstairs, then I catch the flight in the morning to do whatever it is that I'm going to do, or rather go back home. So that's what I did appreciate growing up an only child, because that's what I had to do. Like, I'm at home by myself. For the most, mother was at work, so I'm sitting there trying to figure out what to do. And you gain more of an appreciation for that as an adult. So I think that was that self-fulfillment. And seeking validation within myself, as opposed to for a mental, I guess, health standpoint, that helped, I guess, growing up an only child.
Yeah, and you mentioned your mom really emphasizing the importance of fatherhood.
Absolutely. And
you obviously experienced that as a child, not having a dad there. So let's segue into Tori, your fiance. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when's the wedding date?
Was the second weekend, if I'm not mistaken, of July.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's coming up. It's not too far from here. We have been together forever, so it's like we ain't wasting all this time in the engagement process.
Did you pick July?
It's funny that
purpose?
It was a joke. It started as a joke, right? It started as a joke. And the lady would say that, hey, July's are gonna get married in July, and I was like,
wonk wonk.
And then it actually ended up happening. I think the joke just went too far. So here we are getting married in July.
That's funny. Let's pause for just a second, because you've already lived a fascinating life. You've had your hand in every possible angle: music, athletics, politics. People, at least in this audience, probably recognize you most from your appearances on Blaze TV.
Yes.
Talking politics, economics, and so on. How did that transition happen where you ended up in this building on a regular basis talking about politics?
Yeah, so I became more of a, let's say, political commentator going into like a public one. You know, I was doing the music and stuff like that, but it wasn't like a case of me like doing videos or speaking about it like that. That didn't happen until I was probably going 20, 23, 24, 25. And my first big interview that was back when Tucker Carlson was with Fox and Friends at the time. And I did a video that went viral talking about minimum wage. And obviously that got their eyes, and they wanted to have me there. And that right there was a launching pad for that angle. Because a lot of people up until then knew me for like talking about, well, maybe people knew me for talking about politics, but it was more so in the scope of the music. Than anything. So, or maybe they learned about me because they followed me on a form of social media, but their first like coming to me was more so my YouTube page, which had vocal covers and stuff like that, or my music with the bands that I had been in, or something. But that right there was a kind of, it just introduced me to like kind of this world here where other people did this for actual living, where I was just a guy that did a video every now and then and uploaded it to Facebook just because I saw people saying stupid stuff about minimum wage, and I wanted to chime in on it. So that was a launching pad. So I think that interview was like 2014, 2015. And so it just introduced me to everything. Because I was local, you know, I'd been coming here for a very long time over at Blaze Studio. This is back when Dana was here, you know, and that was coming here, doing interviews and stuff like that. It just turned into a longer relationship. And yeah, here I am doing it more so professionally here, and everything else that I do with my show or my YouTube now is more so dominated with this kind of stuff as opposed to what it was when, you know, I was a youngster. Yeah,
is the best place for people to go to see all your stuff, is it ericdjuly.com?
Yeah, that has links to virtually everything. Okay. So ericdjuly.com has links to everything. You know, the YouTube has a feed there, so if they wanted to go there and go view the YouTube, they could do that as well. Okay.
Now, I know on your Twitter profile, help me understand this. Define for us, what is an anarcho-capitalist?
All right. So an anarcho-capitalist.
Because maybe I could very well be one and just not realize.
Yeah. So an anarcho-capitalist is a libertarian that has not made an exception for like the state's existence in like forms of like court systems, laws, and stuff like that. So what I always say is that every anarcho-capitalist is a libertarian, but not all libertarians are anarcho-capitalists.
Okay.
Because a lot of libertarians are more minarchists, is what we call them, and they are they want government out of the way of almost everything except court systems, like police, stuff like that. Whereas to the anarcho-capitalist says, well, we accept that the market's best suited for food and everything else, all the other services. Why would we make an exception for like law or like monopolized law or something like that? So that's more so what an anarcho-capitalist is. It comes from obviously Murray Rothbard was which is funny because people don't know that the only reason Americans, for example, in the West call themselves libertarian is because Murray Rothbard. So it's always funny to hear like people that say minarchism or like they're like minarchists and they're like, well, you're not a libertarian. And I'm like, dude, the only reason y'all call yourselves libertarians is because of Murray Rothbard, who was an anarcho-capitalist libertarian. Prior to that, like even now to this day, the term libertarian, like in Europe, means mutualism or some like socialist bullcrap in a lot of cases. So the only reason people call themselves that in the West is because Murray Rothbard basically hijacked the damn term from them and said, no, we're actually the guys that value liberty, not you. But yes, coming from Murray Rothbard, and like I said earlier, that was the rabbit hole that sent me down it. So
and where was he, Murray Rothbard?
Murray Rothbard, I mean, he's American. He was American. And what was he based out of? He's actually, believe it or not, the Cato Institute. He's one of the founders. One of the founders of... now it's funny because so a lot of people would see what Cato says these days and they're like, Murray Rothbard found that, and this is why he's more associated now with the Mises Institute, more than anything else, because they actually value Mr. Murray Rothbard. and honor his work, which you can go to Mises and .org and read all of that stuff for free.
M-I-S-E-S.
Yes, M-I-S-E-S, which is, of course, named after Ludwig von Mises, who wasn't an anarcho-capitalist.
I love this.
But he was an Austrian economist.
I knew we'd get to this point. Yeah, I love this. So when you're not talking economics or traveling the country and performing music, you have some hobbies.
Yes.
Video games.
Yeah.
First of all, what's your favorite video game right now?
Oh, right now, what am I playing? I mean, I do play sports games time to time.
Do you get on the headset with people and chat?
Those days are behind us now.
Okay.
Like everybody's in like group channels and stuff. Whereas I grew up obviously in the Xbox, Halo days. As well, so we used to trash talk and do all that.
That's what I wondered.
That's not a thing anymore.
Well, that's too bad because
I know it sucks.
I figured you would be in there.
Oh, I'd be out talking all kinds of noise back in those Black Ops days.
I figured you'd be talking smack and it would go right over their heads, and they wouldn't realize that you're
too stupid for me to insult them.
You just cut them down, and they have no idea. Yeah. Okay, comic books are your thing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Marvel or DC?
Man, that's a funny question because I come from obviously a background with both, so I don't have a preference like just on a general scale like Marvel versus DC. But I will say in recent years, well, I guess up until very, very recent, because they're going in a crappy direction, I would have said like comic book wise, like not the movies or anything like that, just straight comic books. DC was doing better than Marvel for sure.
Okay.
Now that might have. I don't know. They're trying to outsuck each other right now because both books are trash. It's like Marvel makes this mistake, and then DC was like, why don't we make the same mistake and do it like tenfold? So it's like,
are you enjoying the Marvel movies?
I can get something out of them. I think they're about to go in this odd direction with this next phase. But look, I say all the time, like, no, they're not direct adaptations of the comic books, but up until recent, they were respecting certainly the source material. A lot of their major arcs came from even up until the Thanos thing. Like that was all basically a depiction of the Infinity Gauntlet arc, which we came out in that was the 80s in the comic book. So up until then, I could respect it because of that. Ultron, Ragnarok, all of these were ideas that they got from the books. Unfortunately, these days, it seems like source material is a burden to them. So I think Captain Marvel was the first movie that people were like, including me, was like, what in the world is this? Like, what is this? And that was obviously late in the previous phase. And if reading on some of the characters that are coming in, it doesn't excite me by any means in what direction. Maybe they can prove me wrong, but I highly doubt it.
I love it. So you don't have a favorite app on your phone?
I mean, not really. I mean,
do you use your phone?
I do. I mean, that's a big form of communication, but probably not as much as everybody else. I'm usually on behind my PC,
and that's why I
do my work.
I kind of wondered if that meant that you just were anti-phone, or you just don't have a favorite.
Not anti-phone by any means. It's just a lot of stuff that I do is centered around being in front of a PC.
Yeah.
More than anything. So I don't do a lot of stuff just on my phone. So I'm not. Not anti-phone, but I'm not certainly as big of a phone guy as other people because my work doesn't allow me to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I can absolutely respect your favorite comfort food, which is Frosted Flakes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, was it already a comfort food, or did you have to stop and really think about that when you replied to this email?
I had to think about it.
Because that's a good one, though.
Yeah, I had to think about it, and I thought about it like man, when I'm just like, in a good spot. I'm like got a fresh bowl of Frosted Flakes, and I'm like watching something, usually some comic book adaptation or something like that. And I'm like, I'm in a real good spot there. So,
and the thing about Frosted Flakes is there's that perfect moment where the milk has made the flakes just soggy enough where it's perfect.
Yeah.
You don't want them too crisp. And maybe this is with every cereal, but it seems like especially with Frosted Flakes, because if they get too saturated, and it just becomes a mess. But I just feel like there's a sweet spot of time with the milk. Yeah. All right, so are you a big Fruity Pebbles fan as well?
Not as much.
And the reason I bring that up so randomly is because as I saw your answer, for me, I thought that's a great answer, and then I thought, man, do I like Frosted Flakes or Fruity Pebbles more? So anyhow, that'd be a toss-up for me.
I don't eat his Fruity Pebbles as much.
Yeah.
But I did when I was coming up. Yeah, that was like one of the
so good
cereal. Fruity Pebbles is awesome. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I just the hard-hitting questions you get here at the mic. Okay. So you have so if you could go back in time, you would love to meet Murray Rothbard.
Absolutely.
Okay. But you have actually crossed paths with Walter Williams.
Yes.
Who, for the record, when he would fill in for Rush Limbaugh, I mean, it was like sitting in a high-level college course and just getting the education for free.
Yeah.
Soak it up for 3 hours. So where did you meet him?
I met Walter. He came out here in Dallas. He was speaking at SMU. And the guys that do that, I think it's the business school side of things, they were bringing him out here. And it's so random because they reached out to me because they knew he was I had done no work I haven't spoke at SMU, and that was one of the colleges you'd think I would. Hey, you do speaking engagement. Wouldn't SMU make sense because you live in Dallas? Like, no, I never spoke there. But they reached out to me knowing that he was a big influence of mine.
How cool was that?
Yeah, and it was like, he's like, hey, man, Walter's going to be here. You should come out. And so I did. And it's a funny story because this, again, you got to understand, for me, this is a guy that sent me down that path, got me to thinking how I'm thinking now. So I had to check this off my bucket list. Yeah. This is a big deal for me. So he ends the speech, and he's sitting at obviously the front or not too far away from the stage. And some people are like, okay, yeah, you can go up there and speak to him. So I was sitting in the back for him. I was actually standing up during like his entire speech. I was standing up in the back. And so lights come on and everything. I'm trying to walk to get to him down that aisle, right? Like, and I'm being just interrupted by people like, oh, that's Eric July, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to take these. So I got to take these freaking pictures with people and stuff like that. And I had to take probably like 5 pictures, man, on my way down from the back to the front. And it just goes to show from like, definitely maybe, I don't know if it's generational or what it is, like what people thought I was the cool guy. I look at Walter like that. So while they're trying to get to me, I'm trying to get to Walter.
You're probably keeping your eye on him the whole time.
Yes. And I'm like, hey, all right, here's a cool picture. And then I'm walking back. I'm like, I got to get to him. And I finally was able to get to him. And I used that time when I shook his hand. I obviously took a picture. We took a picture, but I shook his hand, and I was like, I wanted to tell him to his face what he meant to me. And the crazy thing was how he knew who I was. Which is like he didn't know that was me, but as I was talking to him, he was like, "Oh, you're so and so." We've seen your videos, and I was like, "Yeah." So that was cool, but that was certainly a thing that I had to get off my. Of course, he recently passed, unfortunately, which sucked. But for me to be able to tell someone, if I would say, "Blessed be those who have no idols," but if there were to be one, he'd be one of them. I'd probably have 2, but he would be one of them. So I got to speak to him briefly and tell him what he meant to me. And I recently checked that, me speaking in that recent Thomas Sowell documentary as well. I guess both of them have been checked off the list that I got to at least be in some part be
That's cool.
Involved with the guys that influenced me the most.
That's really cool. Tell us about your earliest memory when you ran, a 60-meter race or something?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I had to been like first grade. Okay. That was my first memory first grade.
Did it go well?
Oh yeah, I smoked everybody. And again, that was me the first time, because I think that had to have been the first time I actually competed like in a sport, like actually competed against other kids my age. And I blew the doors off of them, man. Like, it was bad. And we have pictures of me, like, being in front, at my mother's house, of me being in front of everybody racing. But, no, it went to show, like, certainly, I guess that was as a youngster, me realizing, like, I have a gift, and not everybody is like this. Like, I'm built differently than a lot of these other people. So I for sure was going to be running. That was my gift, and, I took it all the way to the collegiate level.
So it's interesting that you have a talent for running.
Yeah.
And you're a fast individual. But yet in your past isn't so much running as it is stopping the fight.
Yeah.
So how did you get out of that throughout this email?
Yeah.
you make references to this, and I'm just wondering, what do you attribute to keeping you?
I have an exact story to kind of pinpoint that. So like I said, I was banging, and doing all the knucklehead stuff that you would typically see out of a lot of brothers coming out of single parent homes. And I remember this was my senior, it had to be my senior year. And I realized again going into my senior year that, okay, I have a gift and I can take it to another level that will get me away from this. But I didn't really go out of my way to be anti what I was doing, the stuff that I was doing, until, I had a girlfriend at the time. She was a basketball athlete at Summit. I was a track and field athlete, obviously. And we used to kind of hang out and talk in the parking lot, before my practice would start, so right after school. And I remember chatting with her, and these dudes rolled up in a car, it was a full car. It had to be 6 of them in that freaking packed up in that car. Now I knew what time it was. It wasn't nothing for me. When I tell you I was crazy as hell back then, it was nothing for me to fight groups of people, and I would not run away from it. So if I saw a group of, and I was outnumbered, it wasn't nothing for me to be just taking all my stuff off. I will fight everybody in this area. Y'all gonna jump me, but someone's gonna feel something. But that was my first time where it set, and nothing happened to her. But I remember telling her okay, I'm about to run that way because I already know what they're here for. You get out of there, because me going that way is going to attract them to me. That was my first time where it really set in that the life that I was living was actually going to get someone else hurt. And it's one thing for me, someone to come hit me in the back of the head or something like that, that was nothing. Jump me, that was nothing. But for someone else to possibly or potentially get hurt just because they are a loved one or something, that was a different thing, and it felt different. But that was the first time with someone that had absolutely nothing, just a pure innocent being, had nothing to do with anything, where I actually felt that they were in danger. So it was a wake up call. Okay, what you're doing could get someone else. Now, thankfully, it didn't, but it could get someone else that's an innocent being hurt. I wouldn't be able to sleep with that on my conscience, man. So it was certainly a life altering experience.
And it sounds like your senior year in high school
that changed everything.
That sounds like that's where the fork in the road
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
100%. And it was obviously a slow crawl because even going into college, I still started myself as a badass. But that was, I started becoming anti-former me. So if you could look at myself by the end of my senior year versus me as a freshman, sophomore, junior, they would have been I would have been the guy at that time, after my senior year, certainly the guy that would be telling folks, don't do that. As in, that is a terrible way to live. You shouldn't live that way. And that's kind of the perspective that it was. I was just a different person as far as what I valued.
So educate me as someone who isn't overly familiar with the gang lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is going to sound naive, but it's not meant to be anything other than trying to understand.
Yeah.
Once you're in a gang, right, do you just kind of ghost them until you're out of that lifestyle? Or is it like the mob where you're never leaving?
Yeah.
How do you separate yourself?
It's an interesting thing because I know it's different. It's going to be different every location, right? Banging out in Texas is different from maybe West Coast stuff. You know what I mean? And even in Texas, what we did in Dallas versus Houston is different. With me, I think everybody saw the writing that was on the walls. It's like people, for example, gangs in Chicago, for example, which is a big-time basketball area for people that don't know. A lot of greats, Derrick Rose, and a lot of these guys that were great. And they had a sense of, at some point, that was understood by everybody that was in the area, they were off limits. You know what I mean? You couldn't really mess with them because they are doing something better with themselves, definitely if they were very young. Wow. Whereas to me, it wasn't necessarily that, but because I was one heck of an athlete, I think everybody around here knew that I would at some point be something else. Now, did they think that I would be what I am now? Probably not. But they knew that I was going to be someone. I always had a head on my shoulders, being smart, but more so in that case, definitely with the athleticism. So are there people that I knew that I used to bang with that are still doing that nonsense? Absolutely. But there's also people that I grew up with, definitely the close ones, like my closest partner, who also got out of that lifestyle. You know what I mean? And it's nothing. I only see guys probably now a lot of often, I'll talk to them, they'll see me on Facebook or something like that. And when I go get my haircut, I go and get my haircut where I was born and raised. Cool. So every time I go out there, it's always like a cool conversation. Like, oh, what's up, dog? Where you been? Like, and it's funny because a lot of folks think that was only who they knew me as, right? Banging, like Ripper. That's where the name came from. Like, they knew me from that. And it's funny to see people see me differently. They know it's me. They recognize the face. But you can say, like, just how well off I am right now. They don't even understand that, because you'll get folks that I run into, they're like, dude, I have not seen you in, like, years. Was I locked up? And I was like, nah, like that wasn't, I didn't do anything to get me locked up. I just got off of doing what I was doing to be around.
There's another way out.
Yeah, there's another way out. But no, it just goes to show how deep I was, but more unfamiliar. But no, with my personal experience, like walking away from that life, it was always understood from the people that were around me, definitely back when I was coming up, because I was an athlete. They knew this wasn't going to last or assumed that it wasn't going to last forever. And I was in the trenches. So it ain't like anybody could say anything to me anyway. Like, yeah, I walked away and did that. Like, what of it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there ain't nothing you did that I didn't do, so you can't like disrespect me or something of that nature. And there maybe be people that are still like, man, that guy went and turned coat and sold out or something like that. I'm sure there's maybe one or two. But for the most part, people know. So when you do go back to the old neighborhood and get your hair cut or just anywhere, is there any part of you that, like, in other words, is there any kind of old grudge or anything that you might be on high alert for, that someone is always behind you looking? I would say I have to be cognizant of it, but it's not anything that I ever worried about.
Okay.
Like that. I know I can't say that for a lot of other people, but it wasn't like I was wronging people that didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, I wasn't that guy. You know what I mean? It was beef and stuff like that, but I never wronged anybody to that degree. Okay. But this is it's funny. This is why I value firearm ownership as much as I do now. So I'm never caught without it on me in the event. I'm a lady can speak to this as well. I'm always aware of my surroundings and what's happening, but I've never definitely back there, because I remember when I was getting off of, like, as I was going into my senior year, for example, a lot of the people that we banged on were not even from our area. Now, Fort Worth is a different story. No. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm there, maybe there'll be someone over there from long ago that may be stupid enough to be. But even back then, because of the rap stuff, I would inevitably have to be friends with people that were from the other side of town. But I'm just using that as an example. Yeah. We used to beef more so. When I was first coming up, it was like people that were around you at your school, on the other side of the neighborhood, something like that. And then as I got older, it was more, we would go, you have Dallas folk come over, even that didn't like each other, right? That would claim different colors too. You have people that were B-Dogs, Crips, whatever, that would then team up just to fight other neighborhoods or other cities. So you'd have Arlington people beefing with Dallas folk, Fort Worth people beefing with Dallas folks. Yeah, Arlington folks beefing with Fort Worth folks. So it was like, let's say there was a point in time where that was the thing. But because I was a rapper, I knew a lot of people from Fort Worth that I was cool with and stuff like that. So even then, I wouldn't feel like if I go there now, I can't really honestly say that somebody would off me or something like that.
Right. Did the gang you were a part of, did you guys have a color?
Oh, for the most part, yeah. We were all like B-Dogs, you know what I mean? We were all claiming Bloods, you know what I'm saying? So we were all, so red. But that was like a thing. See, that's the thing.
But what if you woke up one day and you wanted to wear green?
You just wore green. We wasn't it wasn't in Texas, it wasn't or rather in Dallas, it wasn't. There was a time where people called themselves beefing on colors. But more so, it was it was more people beefing like on people that were on the other side of the neighbor. It wasn't as colors as much. So you'd have people that were whatever they call themselves, Crips, Bloods, whatever, that were cool with each other. Obviously, that were in the same clique, because that was another thing. Like you had cliques where it was like basically little groups of people that had formed that claimed different colors. You know what I mean? So it was an odd time, but nah, colors like that weren't. And there was a time when it was, but for the most part, when I was coming up, people claim colors, but that wasn't what would get someone beat up.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
Toria, where did you and Toria meet? Your fiance.
That's funny. I met her, and oh man, it's gonna sound so cliche. I met her literally in a mosh pit. And I tell people this story, and they're like, "You're making it up." I'm like, I am not joking.
Wait, were you the artist, or were you an attendee?
I was a fan. It was in a band who, I'm cool with some of the members, called Memphis Mayfire.
Okay.
They're out of Dallas. They're based out of Dallas too, and it was a Warp Tour. That was back when Warp Tour was still a thing. Mm-hmm. And they'd come to Dallas, and I saw her, and it was funny because she was what we call like slam dancer or hardcore dancer. So she'd be in there going crazy. So I'm sitting here like, who is this black chick that is in this pit going crazy right now? And one thing led to another. We talked after that, and I was like, I first met Toria in the pit. I'm like, not even joking.
Okay, and I totally believe the story, but I want to know, did she end up slamming into you multiple times? And is that almost like flirting in the mosh pit?
Nah, like, because I wasn't much of a slam dancer. I was more of a traditional mosher. So I get in there, but I'm pushing people around. Whereas she would be like going off and like with everybody else.
This is the area of the concert hall that yours truly avoids like the plague.
Yeah, exactly. So I was more so when I saw people that would slam dance, I would be more so on the outskirts. Okay. Now, if it's a traditional mosh, I get in there. And sometimes, even when people slam dance, but she was in there going ape, man. Like, so it was awesome for me to see, but I was like, who is this black chick? Because obviously it's metal, so it's not that many black folk that are there anyway. And I'm like, who is this black chick that is going off? And one thing led to another, and then cool. A couple of years after that, we dated.
That's awesome. And again, congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. Okay, one of your dream ideas, which I have the same one, is to live on property. Somewhere that is self-sufficient, right? Your own energy. And what we experienced in Texas back in February.
I think everybody's on that train now. I think seriously, I've heard everybody's talking about like living like that now.
Uh-huh. So, do you have it all planned out, or is it just something that one day you hope to?
Nah, that's my next project. That's my next big project. Money wise, that is my next big project.
Right. And do you want to be completely off the grid or just self-sufficient? In other words, if I'm living on my self-sufficient property and you're living on yours, do you still want to be able to pick up the phone and call me, or do you want to be completely invisible?
I want that. I want some. This is why I'm trying to find a sweet spot in between living in a semi-rural area while also getting like that. And I think it's a realistic thing. I mean, when you consider the amounts of land and how more expansive things are, you can get stuff on the outskirts of a big city that is rural, and that you can put your own stuff on, but it's close enough to even maybe get a decent internet connection and stuff like that. That's my dream right there, to get something like that. So I want to have some sort of connectivity because, like you said, I want to have space certainly between myself and my neighbors, because I'm thinking multiple acreage of land to do whatever it is that I want. Maybe when I get it, I don't have it, but maybe I'm 35 and I'm like, maybe I want a big garden now, and then I just say, all right, that part of the of the property, we're gonna turn that into like places where we're growing our own food.
Right.
I want a freaking wind turbine there on property. That we have enough to do it. It's more so, but I would love the idea of having semi-connectivity to where.
And here's the issue for people like me, and definitely for people like you who are so active online in so many respects, and I want to go over all the places people can find you. But once you get out to this acreage, this self-sufficient area, you do need. That's what's so insidious. We love our internet. We love our connectivity, but yet at the same time, we hate it.
Yeah.
So I hope you do find that sweet spot.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find that. Like my dream, like I said, is something like that while I can also get fiber internet. That would be like godsend. And technology is advancing. You know, we got the Starlink stuff.
I was about to tell you that.
That which they recently announced that they think that they were going to be able to get it up to 300 megabits per second, which as before I think it was like 100. Right. So maybe that does expand to something crazy.
Yep.
As well. So we'll see.
Yeah, Starlink. That is a Tesla. That is a Elon Musk project, and I was just about to mention that to you as the way to get your internet. Yeah. As far as affordable land. You're on your own. Good luck. Okay, so people can find you social media all over. Instead of me trying to run through the list here, why don't you just tell everybody where they can find you and your name and everything? Of course,
ericdjuly.com is my website, which will give you the links and to every page that I have. So that'll make it easier for you, ericdjuly.com. But of course, I'm on YouTube. That's where a lot of people get their information from. So I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/Young Ripper. I've had this for a long time. Young Ripper 59, the number 5 and the number 9.
And that's RIPPA.
Yes, RIPPA. You can find me there. That's my Twitch handle as well. So if you're into watching streaming, we stream from time to time. We stream the show every day for Canon's sake on the YouTube, but we do stream gaming over at Twitch. Same thing.
How do you have all the time?
It's time. Had to recently bring up a full time. I made that decision. Literally, this person started yesterday. Like that was
Somebody's
their first day.
helping you.
Yes, but it gets to a point to where you don't have enough time to edit because up until then I literally did everything myself.
No wonder you finally had time to join me here today. You got somebody else
exactly.
taking care. Oh, I forgot. And this is a new question that I've started asking. You have your phone on you?
Of course.
Okay, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Got Amazon?
I do.
What's currently in your cart, Eric D. July? Why don't you share with the class?
Ooh, let's see.
If you want to.
Let's see.
If it's
what's in the cart? What was the last thing? I'll tell you this.
What's the last thing you purchased?
The last thing I purchased. There's nothing there now. Last thing I purchased was you'll relate to this because you're in the same deal.
Uh-oh.
And this is it was a 3.5 millimeter. There's a TRS cable that I needed. So I'm always trying to convert something to something else to make it work. Headphones. Yeah. But even like with audio with my stream, I like to have it all run to a mixer.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I want the monitor audio to come. I think that was what I was getting. I want the monitor audio to go straight to my board so I can mess around with it instead of me having to use it on OBS or something with its own audio channel.
I mean, that's cool, Eric, but I was hoping it would be something like an ice cream maker.
Nothing like that. Well, the lady did recently get a label printer.
Oh, that's fun.
Commercial grade label printer.
What is she printing?
She has a craft shop.
Oh, can people find her online?
Absolutely. Daydreamerscustoms.com. Daydreamer Customs.
DaydreamerCustoms.com.
Yes.
So what are some of the stuff you find?
She does jewelry, all kinds of when I say everything, she has little plant holder deals that she's been macrame stuff that she makes. She has a whole entire line.
Oh, cool.
On that. So she's on that Instagram. She's always posting how she's making this stuff. So if you want to see the process as well, you'll be able to follow her.
Any mosh videos of the
I'm pretty sure you'll find me in a pit multiple times because definitely when I perform, people don't understand. Yeah, Backwards has that. It's a metalcore-y kind of hardcore sound.
Okay.
So it's heavy in
it's
general.
called metalcore.
Yeah, metalcore is more so the genre than anything. So you don't see as much of the hardcore dancing and stuff with what it is that we do. But if you've seen us live, we're pretty rowdy.
I love it.
And I have no problem jumping off the stage. And being involved in a pit, which I probably shouldn't be doing.
Hold on a second. You're hoping that people catch you.
Usually I don't even stay. Well, I don't. My bandmates do. My bandmates stage dive like it's nobody's business.
And be careful.
Yeah, and they have guitars and basses in their hands too, so that's kind of dangerous.
30 years ago, early on in U2's existence, Bono jumped off the stage and they didn't catch him.
Yeah,
that's why he has a scar on his chin today.
It can be dangerous. It can be dangerous.
Be
but
careful.
usually, I haven't. I mean, I don't usually jump in there like that. I usually just literally get down and run in there.
Okay.
Well, but my bandmates aren't the same. Like, Alex has this thing, our bassist has this thing, like, before, like, usually the first song will play, he's already out of his mind. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm going in. And next thing you know, we don't have, I'm singing a song, and I look to the right, he's not there. And then I look in the crowd, and he's like right there, and I'm like, oh my God.
Does somebody grab the bass guitar and start?
Usually he's in there with it. Like no lie. Usually he's in there with it. He'll be in there still playing because it's wireless. So he's in there usually still playing. Sometimes he won't. Sometimes though he'll put it up and jump in there. So we'll go through a period of time where we don't have any bass.
Right. And I know I'm analyzing this way too much, but it just occurred to me. It's been a long time since I've been to a concert. But is the bass guitar, is it still cabled or is it Bluetooth?
No, he's wireless. Now that's the thing that we all do for most. So he has absolute freedom.
Wow.
So we used to do that whole deal where we had it wired, but now, once we stopped being a baby band, we had to upgrade. And for as wild as we are, if we had cables, which when we did, we'd be tripping over each other and all kinds of stuff. So now we go with the wireless setup, so we don't have to worry about that.
All right, Eric July, thank you so much for being a part of At the Mic. I really appreciate your time. Good to know you, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun getting to know Eric. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Be sure to check out his stuff at ericdjuly.com when you can. ericdjuly.com. And also be sure to head over to atthemicshow.com. Leave a message for me. Check out the archive. If you have any friends who enjoy fun conversations with good people, I hope you'll spread the word. And next week, we catch up with a former Blaze producer, Natasha Pacetta. We can see what she's been up to, which is a lot. I hope you're going to join us for that conversation next week. Until then, go be free. And thank you for listening to At the Mic.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Head to atthemicshow.com for archived episodes, sponsor information, and ways to connect.